Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC 188. Overall, main event was good. Co-main was alright. Overall, though, I wasn't too... I didn't find the entertainment value of this card to be that great. My picks weren't that great. I'm not saying the entertainment value is like bad because my picks weren't great. I really didn't think it was such a fun card to watch. Legitimately, regardless of my picks, I only went 5 out of 12. The only ones I got right were Pendred versus Montano, Case versus Trevino, Cejudo versus Camus, Torres versus Hill, and Gastelum versus Marquardt. Bonuses: Verdum and Williams earned performance of the night, while Rodriguez versus Rosa got fight of the night. One thing to note, the altitude. I mean, what can I say? Even guys that, a lot of guys I thought looked really bad. I mean, even like Johnny Case, when he fought Trevino, I was like, man, he just looks off. They look really, a lot of these guys just look really bad. Yair Rodriguez looked really good for 2 rounds, and the third round, I mean, he's just lying flat and getting ground and pounded. I thought Gastelum could probably have done a little better against Marquardt. I felt that Alvarez and Melendez could have done a lot better in altitude. I felt Velasquez could have done better as well if it weren't in altitude. Andrew Hill was like huffing and puffing after the first round. I didn't think Cejudo looked that good. I can't really tell if it's because of Chico Camus or the combination of fighting a guy that was as crafty as Camus and the altitude. I can't stress enough. Like even guys who won, I didn't think, some guys that won, I didn't think looked very good. And I don't know how it relates to what these guys really truly bring to the table, in a sense. I've seen Johnny Case look better than this, I picked him to win, and I'm freaking totally tearing them apart, For example, Tessa Torres looked really bad, but that was actually just stylistically, she was grinding. Everyone just looked a little slower, a little sloppier, and that was just across the board too. Just that except for the guys who won and got those first round guillotines, and 3 wins by guillotine choke on this card. Interesting there. And actually the only other stoppage was Gastelum versus Marquardt, which was the corner stoppage. This fight, or this UFC also illustrates the UFC heavyweight title curse. No heavyweight champion in the UFC can defend the belt more than 2 times or something like that. There's a stat there with the UFC heavyweight title. It's got to be said with Rafael Cordero as being just one of the top coaches in MMA right now. I mean, Fabricio Verdum and Dos Anjos winning titles. And then you got guys like Dariush coming up, Pedro Munoz coming up. Great camp, Kings MMA just really coming up. There's an argument for Fabricio Verdum being the a greatest of all time resume. I know people will say Fedor. But there's an argument to be made here. I think the loss to Junior Dos Santos probably, and Arlovsky a while back probably stuffs that idea, But I think there's an argument to be made beating guy like Cain Velasquez. He did lose to Overeem. If he didn't have some of the losses interspersed in there, I think there's a good argument for Verdum. Because he beat Fedor. Then he's also beaten Bigfoot. He beat Travis Brown, Mark Hunt, Cain Velasquez, Gonzaga. He has beaten Overeem, but then he lost him in a terrible fight. So, I think with the losses interspersed in there, that probably doesn't help his case in that regard. Another thing to note, Latin American fighters. I definitely underestimated a lot of them, and I'm gonna keep my eye out for Yair Rodriguez moving forward, man. He made me eat crow. I got some crow here, man. He's got some crow. I'm eating crow. I made a lot of crow today, actually. So let's get started. I'm trying eating crow right now. Fabricio Verdun defeated Cain Velasquez by guillotine in the third round. Very telling here. One, Cain Velasquez did not train in altitude for very long. He said 2 weeks. I don't even know if it was 2 weeks of actual training or not. I was like, I know with Verdun, he had stories of him living there in Mexico City or something like that. And it showed. The way Cain was fighting in that first round was a heavy pace, and he just could not maintain throughout all 5 rounds. Makes you wonder if the whole cardio Cain hype got to him. Because, what he was doing in the first round, he could not maintain in the second and third round at all. Once again, you gotta wonder how much cardio played in that, plus his being out for 2 years. And I say that because, in the sense that how I predict fights is based on a perceived skill set analysis. Now, if your skill set and technical skill is getting diminished due to altitude, that probably doesn't work for me very well. Granted, I just got some straight wrong. I didn't expect Rodriguez, for example, to look that good against Rosa, for example. But compounded by the fact that when you're tired, your skill gets lessened, and you just don't look as good. You just look really sloppy. One thing I like about Fabricio, though, besides the fact that he's smart about his training, he has a very good chin. He always has. And his striking, it's not his defense per se, it's actually his diversity. Getting the knees, getting the kicks, getting the punches. And he was fighting, he's using really long strikes too. When he's punching, it's really long. So I really liked what I saw. Mainly diversity, Defensively, there's a lot to be desired. But hey, once again, the cardio, the altitude thing could probably affect Verdum in a sense too. You just, because he looked good. He looked very good. But even I thought he probably could have looked even better. Had in altitude. But yeah, just was Velasquez. He can take Verdum down.
Then he got guillotined trying to go for that takedown. By then, though, I think Velasquez was so loopy, tired, sluggish. He goes for this takedown, gets guillotined. It's not surprising just because he just seemed pretty out of it by the third round. But yeah, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, I did see a lot of, the first round I saw a good amount of clinch fighting from Velasquez against the cage, and that seemed to have disappeared in the second and third rounds. Like I said, man, Velasquez is going straight at Verdum. Not smart. Verdum is your new undisputed UFC champion. I would assume that the curse hits him too. I don't know if he beats Junior Dos Santos, as diminished as Dos Santos has looked. And then there's Stipe Miocic. So, and then Ben Rothwell is around there as well. So I'm sure some of those 4 guys will be fighting each other. One of those 4, I'm guessing Junior Dos Santos, because he is coming off the win over Stipe.
he's probably going to get the next shot. And it should be really interesting to see him fight Verdum, because he definitely has, he's beaten him before, and he has the capability of beating him again. And actually a lot of guys do, though. That's the thing. Like Stipe versus Verdum. I mean, Arlovsky has a good chance, you know? So Rothwell, maybe. I mean, the guy's just so tough that he can just get like some counter or something like that and knock a dude's block off while like eating a million punches. I mean, that's just what Rothwell does. I mean, it leaves the heavyweight division wide open. That's interesting, you know, because I think a lot of people think that Cain Velasquez beats everyone, you know, and I guess that's not the case, you know. Verdum, that's a weird thing too, because it's like the rematch is always available, and you have to wonder, like, I really do have to wonder, and I know it seems very discrediting of me to use the altitude, but like I said, I just, watching every fight, not just this fight, every fight and every person and so many people gassing, breathing heavy and whatnot, I just think across the board it affected just every fight. You know, it's not just this fight. I think it's just every fight that everyone in some way, shape, or form was affected negatively by the altitude. It makes me kind of wonder if these guys rematched, or if Alvarez and Melendez rematched, or Rosa versus Rodriguez rematched. You know, would the guys who won today win next time? It makes me really curious in that sense. And it sounds really discrediting. It's like, it is what it is, you know. And it is. I mean, hey, they signed the dotted line. That's the environment they agreed to train in. Verdum was smart about it. Velasquez was not. And Velasquez loses title because of it. With Cain Velasquez, there's a lot of good fights for him. He can fight Travis Brown. Fight Mark Hunt. He can fight the loser of Mir versus Duffy. He can fight over him, you know. So there's he can fight Mitrione, you know. I mean, there's just a lot of guys that Velasquez can fight. It's gonna be really interesting to see Velasquez fight too, because like as coming off the 2-year layoff, you gotta wonder if he's gonna be like, if what we see here is him, you know. Is he just going to move forward in a straight line, eat punches, force, you know, and try to get the clinch or brawl or whatnot? Or is he going to be, like, the technical brawler? Because over here, he was just a brawler, you know? You can want, there's different, technical breakdowns of showing how Cain Velasquez can be a technical brawler. Over here, though, I just thought he was just a brawler. He's just standing in the pocket. He did move his head here and there, but he was just trying to trade. Great win for Verdum, though. Next fight after that, Eddie Alvarez defeated Gilbert Melendez by split decision. This is interesting because, like, Melendez clearly had that first round. And then by the second round, his output was crap. And then Eddie Alvarez clearly took the third round. I was very disappointed in Gilbert Melendez, though. There's something that really bugged me here, and he's, you know, it's actually enough that he probably should have lost the fight. He's up against a cage. He has a whizzer, and all of a sudden he lets go of the whizzer, goes for these pity patter like palm strikes or like short punches while his back is against cage. Let's go with the whizzer. So Eddie Alvarez can now has his arms free to go for the hips. Okay, and then Melendez, his only defense is to try to get the jeez, I've got the name of it. No. It's that one move that's a reversal, and its name escapes me at the moment. That's like his only defense. Very disappointed. I've seen much stronger takedown defense from Melendez. And once again, major tactical error there. I mean, just letting go of the whizzer, and now the guy can, like, for, like, pitter-patter punches or pitter-patter strikes instead of, like, defending the takedown, pummeling under and whatnot. Good rally from Alvarez. It's interesting because, like I said, like that first round, I mean, it was all Melendez. He he got that big overhand right. His jab was on point. And Alvarez really, his eye was swollen shut, was shut. And I kind of thought that, okay, yeah, this is just going to be Melendez. He's going to at least take one more round, His output just died once again. And even Eddie Alvarez, I didn't think he looked that good, too. I thought Melendez looked worse, but I thought Eddie Alvarez could have done better, too. Once again, it just makes me kind of wonder, how would both of these guys, not just one guy, I'm not favoring one guy over the other. I thought, how would both guys do without the altitude? Once again, though, that also shows at the same time who wanted it more. Eddie Alvarez wanted it more. That's the thing. So even if you're presented with the altitude argument, the heart argument now goes to Eddie Alvarez. He wanted it more than Gilbert Melendez. Melendez didn't even look like he can stand under his own power after, like, late in the third round. This is a guy who's gone 5 rounds of Thompson and wars. Masvidal, Benson Henderson, and looked really good. And Eddie Alvarez is a guy who's got 5 rounds with Michael Chandler and looked really good too. And Alvarez, for the most part, it was a fun fight. I kind of wish this were a 5-round fight, actually. It was a fun fight. Outside of elevation, I think it'd be just a more fun fight as well. With that said, with Alvarez, he's back on the horse, It's tough to see how he'll do in the division, but probably fight like the winner of like Dariush versus Johnson. If you want to give him someone lower, see, this one's kind of tough because Melendez is really high up there, I mean, I suppose you can actually go with Pettis versus Alvarez. That wouldn't be too bad. Alvarez versus Nurmagomedov. That would be pretty interesting. It's just hard to find who's higher on the list than Melendez. Because I could say, like, oh yeah, you can fight, like, the winner of Green versus Iaquinta, but I think that's too low on the totem pole for Alvarez to be fighting at this point. But yeah, just good win, good rally from Alvarez. He's able to get takedowns up against a cage. In the third round, was able to outstrike Melendez. He looked like he just had a hard time standing by that point. And just good stuff, good rally from him. Melendez, I kind of wonder, I really do, I kind of wonder if he's going to try and cut to 145 after this. He's lost twice. And yeah, there's a new champion in 155. This is a setback too, This is not, this is kind of like a fight between both of them to see if they can kind of still stay in the debate. Or in the argument, or in the running. There we go. In the running for a potential title shot. Melendez already lost, controversial as it may be, to Benson Henderson in his first title bid in the UFC. And his second title bid in the UFC against Pettis, he got guillotine choked. So, maybe 145 is in the car trim. just in the sense that he has lost twice, or lost 2 title bids, and his only win in the UFC, what is that, like, it's against Diego Sanchez, you know what I mean? I mean, no offense to Diego Sanchez, but it's like, he's not a ranked fighter or anything like that, and he's like a regressing and declining fighter. If you just stay at lightweight, give him like a Miles Jury, loser of Green versus Quinta, loser of Dariush versus Michael Johnson. Yeah, there are still very good fights for Melendez at lightweight. There is no shortage of fights for both of these guys. But, yeah, I gotta wonder what his next move is moving forward. As far as that, Kelvin Gastelum defeated Nate Marquardt by TKO as a corner stoppage in the second round. Thank you, Trevor Whitman. We've seen it so many times where a fighter is just beaten and battered, and their coach still lets him go out. I remember Ron Potts. When he fought Derek Lewis, he was like, "I'm done," and his coaches were just like, "Oh no, you're not. You're going back in." And it's like, God, he's done. Why are you letting him go back out there? One of the worst was Emily Kagan, Andrew Hill. It's like Kagan's just getting beaten down. She's it's some fight on the prelims too. And she's with Jackson Winklejohn, and they let her keep going out there, and I was like, dude, this is stupid, And she just got beaten up more for, in front of an audience of, I don't know. There was, all the seats were empty. I can't imagine too many people were watching that fight on Fight Pass. Just, what's the point, So it's good just to see that the corner actually cared, which is interesting because I remember when Shane Coleman fought Junior Dos Santos that wasn't Whitman in the corner and he told him to go back out there, so that's really interesting. Gastelum's got to move down to 170. His body type is made for welterweight, He had a surprisingly tough time with Nate Marquardt. Marquardt, skill-wise, is a really highly skilled fighter and very well-rounded. But the guy's ability to take a punch is greatly diminished. But he was actually landing pretty well on Gastelum, all things considered. I thought the referee should have probably stopped the fight when he dropped Marquardt and Gastelum was throwing ground and pound. That would have been more of a mercy stoppage. But yeah, I can't say that Gastelum looked great in this fight. He didn't. He looked like another upper mid level fighter. Once again, I kind of wonder if how much the altitude affects all these guys. Like I said, I don't think he looked that bad per se, but I just kind of thought he could have looked better. And heck, I picked him to win, and I thought he could have looked better, So this was kind of his punishment win in a sense. They forced him to go to middleweight, but he, in interviews, he wants to go to welterweight. That's his body type is that of a welterweight. He just needs to fix his diet and whatnot. And there are good fights for him at welterweight anyways, he can fight guys like Lombard, already fought Woodley, Hendricks, the winner of Brown versus Means, Carlos Condit. There's a lot of good fights for Kelvin Gastelum at welterweight. Marquardt, I think this fight actually says that he might have something left in him. but I can see him getting cut. He's only won one of his last like 5 or 6 fights. He may just go to like Bellator though if he does get cut. So I wonder if the UFC will keep him for one more fight, and maybe use him to promote some middleweight prospect or something like that. You know, give him to like Clint Hester or something like that. You know. Otherwise, yeah, he's not a guy I can see winning fights. He can't seem to deal with a jab very well. Gaslam was had a jab in his face a lot. Same with Brad Tavares in the fight before that. And like I said, his ability to take a punch has greatly diminished. Next fight after that, Yair Rodriguez defeated Charles Rosa by split decision. Oh man, I'm embarrassed with this one because it's just, I was so sure that Charles Rosa was going to win. I gave Yair Rodriguez no chance. I'm gonna eat more crow now because of that. Yeah, you know, it's just one of those things. I have no idea. I thought that Charles Rosa would be able to take down Rodriguez. Kind of saw what happened in the third round was kind of what I thought would happen throughout the whole fight. Because when Rosa took him down, he was able, besides the triangles, the thing with Rodriguez is he'll go for some really, he'll go for subs off his back, but he also got his guard pass a good amount of times, too. If he can't get the sub, especially in that third round, he was just getting his guard pass a lot of times. I also wondered about Yair's defense to double legs against the cage. I noticed that when Rosa was getting him up against the cage and shooting instead of the single leg but going for the double, it looked like Rodriguez was getting taken down. I do like Rodriguez's offense on the feet. It's fun, you know. It's effective against a guy like Charles Rosa. But I don't know how effective it's going to be as he moves up the ladder. He's only like, 23? So he has a lot of time to improve. He does have a good ground game. Like I said, there are some holes in his grappling. Like I said, his ability to defend a double leg, especially against a cage, I don't know if that's great. And he still does get his guard passed a good amount of times. He did manage to get some good sweeps, though, on Rosa. Rosa tried to take him down, and he, rolled to, mount. So, there's a lot of positive to take away from Rodriguez. For sure. Way more positive than negative. Fun fight, too. It was just Rodriguez throwing so many different kicks. Getting triangle chokes on 2 occasions against Rosa. Getting some pretty deep ones, actually. Especially that one in the first round. Real deep stuff there. But, yeah, I'm very curious about his growth moving forward. I feel he was someone that was affected by the cardio or by the altitude in the third round. Like I said, when he got taken down, this is a guy who had super active hips and whatnot. By the third round, the guy was just flat. He's just eating ground and pound. Credit to Charles Rosa, man. That guy is always in. That guy is a gamer. That guy is just such a game fighter. He is never gonna go away. He's always in the fight. Fun fight there. At the very least, with Charles Rosa, he's a fun action fighter. If that's the height of his prospects. But the height of Rodriguez's prospects, his ceiling, I don't know, man, it looks a lot higher than I thought it was, than I originally thought it'd be. And yeah, he really made me eat crow here, man. I was just totally underestimated the guy. Both of them should just fight more lower to mid-tier guys of the division, really. Let's try that. Tisha Torres defeated Angela Hill by unanimous decision. This is not the type of performance that I want to see out of Torres to get a potential title shot. I expected this feat to take place more on the feet. Good on Torres, I guess, for utilizing a more wrestling-based approach to this fight, because Angela Hill's strength is in the stand-up. I thought that Angela Hill after the first round was gassing out. I think the cardio is really getting to her. Torres doesn't do much on top though. And I thought she had a couple more opportunities to do more from top control. Even just with ground and pound, Didn't seem like she had too many ways of getting out of that half guard. I kind of saw a couple possibilities there that she could have worked on. Heck, even just pushing down the knee, going for a pancake pass, stuff like that. I felt that they were there at times. But yeah, she was kind of content to grind. So yeah, not a great performance. It's good that she got the win, but I would like to see just more from her. It's nice to see that she actually utilized offensive takedown ability. So I don't see that from her too much. And so actually the takedown she got in the second round was like a trip takedown. Real nice trip takedown, It was a real technical takedown. But she just needs to be able to do more. And moving forward with Tisha Torres too, she needs to get finishing ability. She just is not a finisher. Angela Hill is just so raw. I mean, she's good, she has potential, but she is just raw as hell. And it's one of those things too where like, you can always say like with a lot of fighters, oh, just get more seasoning in the regional scene. Well, here's the problem with the regional scene with women's MMA. They don't get fights very often in the regional scene. They'll probably get more fights, especially strawweights, in the UFC than they would per year than in the regional scene. I mean, you can say, oh yeah, Invicta. Well, Invicta doesn't have that many events. And then the other thing is too, they only put 8, 9 fights per card. And then they have their own roster of fighters that they have to fill spots for. So it's like, it's not like the end all be all for women's mixed martial arts in a sense. I love Invicta, don't get me wrong. So with that said, she's probably not going to get... Angela Hill's probably not going to get cut, but she probably shouldn't be fighting these ranked fighters at this point. She should be fighting Isabella Bodorek, Seohee Ham, who else? Your Heather Jo Clark, even though she's coming off a win. Magana versus Hill would be cool, just opponents like that, Tisha Torres, I just see her against Moroz. I think that'd be a good number 1 contender fight. If not Moroz, who else can she fight? Panay. Maybe a rematch with Marcos would be pretty cool. Just trying to think. Who else is up there? I'm like, she could have a rematch with Paige Van Zandt, if you want to go there as well. But I think their best fight probably is Moroz versus Tisha Torres, number 1 contender fight. Or if Torres gets the winner of, I don't think she'll fight Jessica Aguilar, but if Claudia Gadelha, that's probably the number 1 contender fight. So I'll just do Moroz versus Torres. On to the prelims. Henry Cejudo defeated Chico Camus by unanimous decision. the odds had this as a huge spread. Camus was in it. What can I say? Defended takedowns really well. Did well enough on the feet, but I actually found that Henry Cejudo was actually hitting some pretty good counter strikes. It was kind of hard to see, but there were times he'd block and counter a lot of times. He did look a bit sluggish here once again. I kind of wonder how much altitude affected him. Like I said, it's just I kind of think had it not been for altitude, he probably could have completed some of those takedowns. He wasn't really driving through with some of those takedowns though, so maybe maybe I'm wrong there. So what he'd do is he'd shoot for the legs, and then instead of driving through, he'd just go for the clinch. But he's a prospect on the rise. This isn't. Camus is pretty game. And, he made it a much tougher fight for Cejudo than anyone thought would happen. But, it's still a good one for Cejudo. One thing that's going to hurt Cejudo, I think, actually is finishing ability. I don't know if he has much. Because I believe his record's something like his first 4 fights he got a finish. And then every fight after that, which is like the next 4 or 5, were all decisions. He's gonna need some finishing ability. The only problem is, here's the thing though. If you look at the level of opposition he's fighting, he's gonna fight more guys that are just harder and harder to finish. He's probably just gonna get more ranked opponents now. He'll probably get like a Dustin Ortiz next, or is he ranked? I think Dustin Ortiz. I don't know if they'll go with like Benavidez or something like that, or like Horiguchi. Or Dodson or Makovsky. They could go Cejudo, Formiga. I think that would be pretty cool, actually. Because Formiga's not getting next title shot. Dodson most likely is. So I can see Cejudo versus Formiga. I think that would be pretty cool. With Camus, Camus is actually pretty good. Despite coming off the loss, I'd like to see him fight some guys that are pretty high up there. Let him fight Carriazo, who else? Makovsky, that'd be kind of cool too. So just, some higher ranked flyweights that are coming off losses would be pretty cool for Camus. Next right after that, Efrain Escudero defeated Drew Dober by guillotine in the first round. I'd say Dober's probably gonna get cut because of this. Maybe because he has a win over Varner, and then he had the loss overturned to no contest when he fought Leandro Silva, and now he's coming off the loss to Escudero. And Escudero 2-fight win streak now, huh? He's coming back. I don't know what to say about the guy. The guy he has the tools. His striking's not bad. He's a good wrestler, and his jiu-jitsu's solid as well. He has everything. He hasn't been able to put everything together, though. But when he does, he can look good. This is a good win. Solid win. I think Drew Dober is a solid fighter. Can't blame altitude here. This was just a case of Dober got tripped from like a leg kick or something like that. As he got up, he left his neck open for Escudero to take it and got that win. I can just say just more lower to mid guys in the division for both. Next right after that, Patrick Williams defeated Alejandro Perez by guillotine in the first round. With Perez, it's really tough to say where he's gonna be. There are guys like Benitez who won, Yair Rodriguez who looked really good and won, and then there's like Alejandro Perez who just got choked out in 23 seconds. Patrick Williams isn't a bad fighter. He's a good wrestler. His record's not that great. It's like 8-4. He can be
he can use a lot of exaggerated movements at times. He landed some good right hands on Alejandro Perez. Alejandro did not even manage to land a strike, to my knowledge, in that fight. And he got choked out and in highlight reel fashion. It's really hard to say. There's some guys, like I said, from Ultimate Fighter Latin America that's like, okay, these guys can beat UFC caliber opponents. Yair Rodriguez, Gabriel Benitez, I don't know if Alejandro Perez is one of those guys. Good win for Williams. He needed it too because he got flying knee knocked out from Chris Beal. So that's Chris Beal's highlight. Now Williams got a nice highlight reel submission against Perez. Both guys should just fight more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. Despite with that, Johnny Case defeated Francisco Trevino by unanimous decision. Like I said, I wasn't too fond of Case's performance here. I didn't think he looked that bad, but like I said, I kind of thought that the altitude kind of affected him. It was just an okay fight. Trevino, he was like asking to like punch him or like kick him in the body and stuff, and it's like he didn't really do much. Trevino doesn't have much in his arsenal. His takedown defense isn't that great. He gives up his back when he gets back to his feet, so he gets his back taken. It's not just Johnny Case. I believe Henry Forge took his back too, if I'm not mistaken. And Trevino's like a good enough striker. Case is just a bit more well-rounded guy, I like to see him kind of move up in the division. Give him some of those, hulking Brazilian, like, gatekeeper guys, or Adriano Martins. I think a good fight for him would be Leonardo Santos. Just someone like that. Masvidal. Masvidal versus Case wouldn't be too bad as well. For Trevino, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division. So with that, and this is Fight Pass. Cathal Pendra defeated Augusto Montano by unanimous decision. Montano, he got called for timidity. It's not a good fight, Montano didn't do much. Pendra, kind of a snoozer. What can I say? Kind of a grinder. Less said about it, the better. Just more lower to mid guys in the division for him. Cathal Pendra, 4-0, and no one believes that he's any better coming out of the Ultimate Fighter now than back then. It's like he's good, he's big, he can enforce his will on his opponent, but he's not the most technically skilled guy. Just more lower to mid guys at the division. And finally, Gabriel Benitez defeated Clay Collard by unanimous decision. Considering Clay Collard, how well he did against Max Holloway, I expected more from him. But man, he got blasted in the first round. I think Benitez probably could have finished him at times, but he got the comfortable unanimous decision win. Showed that he kind of belongs in the UFC and can beat UFC caliber opponents. Just more lower to mid guys of the division for both. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC 188. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.